discussion and give and take about long-term approaches to debt and rate increases and all that. Today, we're just adopting the base budget.
That's correct.
But you all do anticipate that we'll come back
Next month.
to amend this budget, or just talk further and then amend it later?
I think what we'll do next month is present those new funding scenarios for electric and water and talk about that, and we can look at potentially other options as well. But if we're satisfied with those new funding scenarios, then we would go forward at the August meeting and then potentially have official action with respect to rate increases, water bond issue, and also additional appropriations requests to cover those expenditures. Yes, sir.
And doing that in August, I mean, that still gives you sufficient time to, if that's what we decide to do, to go ahead and
Yes, sir.
and step up some of these capital projects and get it back on a faster track.
Yes, sir. Sufficient time, that's correct.
And Mark, just to remind us, there is a penciled in water rate increase in this base budget.
There is. And there's also a bond issue built into that as well. We're not asking for you to approve those today because obviously the size and timing of both are dependent upon additional dollars we might add to the plan. Correct.
Mr. Walker, thank you. If it's any consolation, I get a little choked up myself. $850 million worth of budget is daunting for us as well. So, all right, so resolution 1243 will handle first request authorization for short-term line of credit for the gas division.
Move that we adopt it.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any comment, questions, public comment? Mr. Coley, we'll have a roll call vote.
Commissioner Anderson. Commissioner Cannell. Commissioner Jones.
Aye.
Commissioner Robinson.
Aye.
Commissioner Simmons. Commissioner Thompson. Commissioner Williams is not here. Resolution 1243 is passed.
Okay. 1244, requesting approval for the fiscal year 2012 budget appropriations. And by the way, these are first and final readings, all of these, so we need a motion.
Second.
A motion and a second. Also, questions, comments, public comment. Roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Anderson. Commissioner Cannell. Commissioner Jones.
Aye.
Commissioner Robinson.
Aye.
Commissioner Simmons. Commissioner Thompson. Resolution 1244 is passed.
Resolution 1245, requesting commitment authority for goods and services that will be paid for on or after July 1, 2012.
So moved.
Second. Questions, comments, public input? None, we'll take a roll call vote.
Commissioner Anderson. Commissioner Cannell. Commissioner Jones.
Aye.
Commissioner Robinson.
Aye.
Commissioner Simmons. Commissioner Thompson. Resolution 1245 is passed.
Thank you very much, everyone. We're moving on to another resolution that's on our agenda today, 1246, requesting authorization for the condemnation of easements related to wastewater system project within the Third Creek trunk line.
Commissioners, we have an area in the Concord Sutherland Avenue area where we have not been able to get easements yet from the property owners, so we're asking for condemnation authority, and I'll ask Julie Childers to present this issue.
Good afternoon. Today I want to present our resolution 1246, which has to do with the potential condemnation of easements on two parcels. The project consists of about 5,000 feet of trunk line, beginning behind the ag campus and continuing on upstream through Tyson Park and then up to I-40. The project will consist of 36-inch and 48-inch trunk lines. As you can see from the map, we have obtained easements already on 5 parcels, and those are shown in blue. The 2 remaining that we have not obtained easements yet on are the Sequatchie Concrete and Motorway. Beginning with Sequatchie Concrete, you can see that there's actually 2 Sequatchie Concrete properties, the one to the north of Sutherland. We were able to obtain a negotiated easement last week. The one to the south, there are a little bit more complications there. They're actually managed by 2 different groups. And you may recall in the news a few weeks ago when we had the storm, they had a major fire at their location. And so that's set them back have to, of course, set our negotiations back somewhat. With motorways, we're dealing with an out-of-state owner in Michigan. We've been able to contact them by phone and send them documents, but they are pretty much non-responsive to our request to negotiate or discuss the matter. So we're asking for authority to proceed with condemnation on easements on these two properties. Any questions on that?
Yeah, Julie, you show existing lines that are not existing lines where we proposed a new one?
The situation is down here in the Alcoa Highway area. I remember maybe 10, 12 years ago, there were some major upgrades to the Alcoa Highway system itself. And when the highway work was done, we went ahead and upgraded those lines that are in this section here. This section right here just happened to already be large enough. It was installed in the 80s and it was already large enough. But every line that you see in red is a section that we're actually going to do upgrades on.
So is there already a smaller line that runs through these?
There is. We're upsizing the existing concrete.
And are both of these existing active businesses?
Yes, they are. The Sequatchie Concrete manufactures concrete blocks. The Ready Mix plant is the one to the north, and they're both operational. Motorways has a small trucking company that is active right now.
Does that go through the parking lot in the front of the building?
This is actually in the back.
That's in the back.
You can see Concord Street right here, and this is the railroad. If you're going down Concord from like Kingston Pike, you can look off to the right, and you can't even see this, it's so far in the back. It's next to the creek along the back of their property.
What do they do in the back of those? Is it storage or?
At motorways, it's mainly just a parking lot. On Sequatchie, they actually do store materials and blocks and that sort of thing. And so what we're planning on doing is actually tunneling across this property and underneath the railroad to try to minimize excavation, but there'll have to be some excavation anyway to reconnect their laterals onto the system, and that's one thing we're trying to still work out with them.
What is the size of this trunk line?
It's, up in this area it's 36, and then at some point it changes to 48 as it goes on down towards Milwaukee. So resolution 1246 would allow us to have condemnation authority for easements on these two parcels, but we can still continue with negotiations as we have been with property owners as long as they're willing. And of course, this would enable us to continue with our construction schedule as we plan. Any other questions?
I move that we adopt resolution 1246.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? Okay, we need a roll call vote.
Commissioner Anderson? Commissioner Cannell? Commissioner Jones?
Aye.
Commissioner Robinson?
Aye.
Commissioner Simmons?
Aye.
Commissioner Thompson? Resolution 1246 has been passed.
Now moving to our president's report.
Commissioners, we're going to take just a few minutes to share with you a report related to the storm of about 3 weeks ago. And I'm going to recognize Mike Bowen to do that, but before he comes up, or you're welcome, come on. Before he makes his presentation, I'd like to just take a minute to express our appreciation for our employees and the work they did. This is probably the most significant storm since I've been here, which is almost 20 years. And the thing that I'm the proudest of is that our crews got the work done safely. We didn't have a single incident that resulted in a problem with our employees, an injury to our employees of any significance. And this is a pretty big deal. When you see in the presentation, you see some of the working conditions they worked in. I think it demonstrates that the focus we had on safety for the last several years is really now institutionalized, and our employees get it, and they're watching each other's backs and they're paying attention. When they're walking through fields and they're not falling down and spraining anything, it's really incredible. So to our employees for their hard work as well as their focus on safety, I think is very important. We had just a very casual, brief thank you to our employees that work in overhead and system operations in the phone center a week ago Friday, and the chair was kind enough to come and express your all's appreciation to them on behalf of the board, and I thank him for taking his time to do that. I said at the breakfast that morning, I think it's the first time that the charity board's ever come when we have these kind of thank you appreciation events, and I think it was noted well by our employees that you all care also about their hard work and express your appreciation to them. And then finally, I want to say thanks to our customers. Despite what was a very lengthy outage, believe it or not, we've gotten thank you notes over thank you notes over thank you notes, and we've had a few disgruntled folks, but in general, the customers have been more understanding in this storm than they've been in a long time. So I want to express our appreciation to them for their understanding and patience, and for their taking care of our employees. We had several incidents when the storm hit on Wednesday where employees were invited into basements and garages to be safe during the hailstorm. And people brought them food and sandwiches, and I think it was about them not wanting them to leave to go eat, but also it was about the customers really did express their appreciation and were very friendly and cordial to our employees, and that means a lot to the folks out in the field. They recognized that they were appreciated. So I want to thank Mike and the leadership down in the areas too for everything that they did during this whole event, and I'll turn it over to Mike for his presentation.
Thank you. Commissioners, it's about a month ago now, I guess, it was on Monday when all this came about. I don't know if y'all remember or not, but it was a really warm day that day. It was late that evening. My wife's got a Volkswagen convertible, and she and I were heading to the Sonic to get us some ice cream cone. And all of a sudden, you see the storm coming up, and we were able to get pop-up in time before it hit. But it was just a huge wind. There were hail down west where we were, and it was just a really intense deal, but it was over in 10 minutes. As you recall. But coming out of that little 10-minute storm that's graphically shown here, what happened was a lot of outages. You can see from the map here, particularly if you focus on the little inset map on the left there, if you look around where Knoxville is, normally our storms come from over Memphis, Nashville way, over here. Sometimes they come up from the south from Chattanooga. But the storm that hit us kind of started in Sweetwater. It didn't come from Nashville. It didn't come from Chattanooga. It just appeared. Okay? It was really unexpected, if y'all remember. That was a very unexpected sort of storm. And it continued on up the valley, right on up the valley, as you can see here graphically, and up there. Immediately after the storm hit, we had about 45,000 customers out. You're used to looking at our outage maps where it has little bubble bullets of different sizes showing you where people are out. This shows you the actual calls and the different type of calls, a little more detailed sort of representation. You can see that it was centered mainly within Knox County, number one, and number two, mainly within the heart of the county, with the most devastation in the Sequoia Hills, Lakemore Hills sort of area. In fact, you can't even hardly see Lakemore Hills there. There's so many outage calls and situations there. This was, storm hit about 7:30. By 8 o'clock, we started getting people rolling in and started understanding what's going on. Again, this was not a storm that normally would have NWS, National Weather Service, telling to be prepared for, get ready for. This was like a cold start type storm situation for us. So starting with this much outages, with 44,000 outages, put in that perspective, it's been about 5 years or so since we had one of that size. We probably hadn't had a storm with this many outages more than 3 or 4 times in the past 20 years. So this is very significant outages out of a 20-minute, 15-minute storm. Starting at that point, started marshaling all the resources, and from that point on, for the next 6-7 days, people were working continuously on this storm. Graphically in pictures, some of the pictures associated with the store, upper left-hand corner, you can see that's actually on Alcoa Highway right there. There was a number of poles down Alcoa Highway. Those that live out there could testify to the traffic issues that were related to that, the poles that were down on there, and we were actually working on that job and replacing those poles and getting Lakemore Hill area back in service for 3 solid days before the next storm hit, and brought down more poles again. But that's a picture of that location. The biggest picture on here on your right, that's off the Middlebrook Pike. You can see the Cherokee Health Facility there in the background. That's also Food City there in the background, but you can look at the pole and tell that's gonna be a big deal, because it's got 2 spans of our transmission line at the top, it's got 1 span of distribution line at the bottom, you've got a 3-phase line going out to the left there in the back side, you got a street light line on there, you got a lot of stuff on that pole. That pole took more than 16 hours to replace. That was a big deal pole. The one on the left-hand bottom down here, you see a person up in a bucket truck. You can barely see the person there, but that gives you a sense of, and it's got a crane holding the pole up right there, gives you a sense of the size of the jobs, the magnitude. Also, you understand the amount of danger involved with some of this work that was occurring. That pole is actually at the intersection of Kingston Pike and Nail and Drive. Right there, that was the one that was focused on television all morning long that one day that work. And again, that was a 16-hour sort of job just to replace that one pole as well. Continuing on, a lot of what we saw, of course anybody that was in that area saw, is the picture like in the upper left-hand corner here, where trees have fallen down, that tree falling down, taking down the line, which then broke the pole in half up here, pulled all the wires down, the transformers laying on the ground. Scenes like this were throughout the areas. Now, where I live in West Knoxville, you didn't see that. There wasn't that. And if you went back and you looked at that map, showed that a lot of our service territory didn't have scenes like that. But if you were in the areas where the storm hit, that was a very common scene. Likewise, the picture right below it here, where this tree and the stump, here's the stump fall, you see the hole where the tree fell. These are 150-year-old trees or whatever that fell, that had been there through all kinds of storms that were taken out by this. This wasn't pine-ridden pine beetle trees falling down. These were major, big trees. I've seen places out and about where when that tree fell, that root ball came up to take out the asphalt and the highway. They were pulling up, the roads were getting pulled up from these trees falling like that. And that's what people were dealing with. Not only did they have problems associated with the power, they also had problems associated with their lives with these big trees out there. Here's some restoration work. When you go back to restore things, you're in this case you're dealing with a lot of vegetation. We talk about trees and vegetation a lot around here, but you're dealing with a lot of vegetation, dealing with a lot of highway control. Just scenes like that throughout the system. More scenes, I can go on and on. The upper left-hand corner here is where obviously damage has been done to this house here. We're going back to try to get the power back on for them. More traffic control, rural highway. I think this is maybe Sevierville Pike. Here you saw this is a person fixing to. This is a switch out right here. If you can focus in, that little thing that's hanging down there, that needs to be up to the top. And when that goes back in service, then they'll be back in service. It's a fuse that's out. And we're able to do some of the restoration is that simple. As simple as